remove that as well, and I don't feel comfortable authorizing $29,000 for the private security funding for that because we're not giving that to other businesses. I would rather, when we get the CARES grant, to go through and talk about different ways of allocating it so that we come up with a good, solid, fair way of allocating that money fairly to our different businesses and our stakeholders. So, does anyone want to talk about that, or do you want me to make a motion?
I also wanted to talk about the $29,000 that's estimated for security services. That is an estimate based upon providing security through the end of October. And it also was an attempt and a request by our police department so that they wouldn't be burdened with potential calls for service down in the downtown area, that they would have somebody there patrolling. And if they needed police services to address a particular situation, then they could call them and they could respond rather than, maybe taking them away from other duties and responsibilities that they have throughout the city. So that was the intent. The CARES Act money is eligible to assist small businesses that have COVID-related expenses. And
thank you, Rosemary. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Rosemary. Is the security for is that going to be all week long, or is it just on the weekends? I'm a little concerned when I'm hearing that they don't. I don't want to say. The police don't want to be burdened with calls, or they don't want to have to send any patrols down there.
Well, it's not that they don't want to send.
We already have patrols down there, correct?
Yeah, it's not that they don't want to send patrols, but having eyes on the area and patrolling the area will minimize their needs to go down there, and they'll be called when they actually are needed, and that'll be helpful to the police department. It's not that they don't want to do their work.
I'm not saying that, but to be honest with you, I'm seeing them there quite often, more than before, and I'm very thankful for that. And it's good to see these patrols more often.
And the security guard is just in the evening hours, in the morning hours, so it's from
10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
So it's during those times when bad things happen. Sometimes
$29,000 is cheap. Member Velto.
Thank you, Mayor. Why is the security service going to be managed by the merchant board? Why wouldn't the community services director, why wouldn't the city, who is responsible, be managing that? In other words, making sure. I don't think it's a good burden to put on that merchant board. I don't think they should be responsible for managing security. I think that's. Doesn't seem like it.
I don't know. I thought it would be an appropriate thing to do. HDU did indicate they would be willing to do that. They're down their front line, so they're actively engaged with that company and providing those services.
Oh, they're already.
Well, we haven't hired anybody yet, but they would be.
I would be apprehensive about having another third party managing security that the city is theoretically paying for.
Mm-hmm.
The city's not paying for it, though. It's coming from the grant.
But the grant comes to the city, and it's funneled through.
Yeah.
So I think I have a little bit of a liability issue there, potentially. I think it should really be, one, maybe some input from the police department.
Yeah. I mean, we can explore that.
I think it needs to be looked at really through the city and the police department, saying what they find is what's necessary. I know the police and the fire say we need it, but I'd like to make sure that that Captain Blanco and any of who's ever responsible for that at the department has the input and say of how they want to make sure the hours, what's most effective. Would that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Important that because they would probably know better timing and when's necessary. Because I did meet with the HDU a few months back when they did have, I think Captain Blanco, you were there, and the security guy who has a security business that's downtown there. I'm not sure if it was you. Chief was there, and they were talking about. The times and when they saw it was most. I think you were there also.
Yeah.
And I think Janice, you were there also.
This was quite some time back, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's to put that burden on HDU. I think is not effective use of that of their obligation, what they're
And
trying to
I
accomplish.
can appreciate that, and I don't have a problem with that, but we need that security down there.
Oh, no,
we need that
absolutely.
extra
No,
security.
100% agreement with the security. But
Right.
as far as the managing of it, I don't think it should be managed by the merchant board. That should be
But
done.
what
Well,
Yours-
and even if the restaurants leave their furniture outside, I mean, it's a risk that they take
Right.
because even with the security
Sure.
person that's roaming around, they're not everywhere.
They might be at the
So-
top of Second Avenue,
Right.
and it's going on at the bottom of Second
So-
Avenue.
It's
So-
just extra. It's just somebody that's there as a resource that will probably.
I'm not talking about not having. I'm saying
Yeah.
that the management of it, it has to be through the city. It must be managed by the city. We cannot. It's not right to have a downtown merchant board be responsible. It's not fair to them. That's not what they do.
Right.
We do require them to hire security during certain events.
Right,
And
of
they
course.
do that. So we can look at it as an event. I think if the city hires the security, then we have to pay prevailing wage. And I think HDU can get more bang for their buck if it goes through them.
We're not hiring them.
But if we're managing them,
Yeah,
we're hiring
And it
them.
would
Then
come
how
to
do
the
you
city.
give the money to a third party? What
No.
count?
Well, staff,
City attorney?
Can you explain that?
It's a reimbursement, type of event. They would provide us the bills. We would review them. Then we would cut them a check.
Okay, but that's not clear here. Now, if that would have been clear here, that said that the HD Merchant Board would provide the security and that they would be reimbursed through the City Care Act, yeah, that would make more sense. But that's not what it's saying here. It's just saying here that, there's $29,000 that's through the CARES Act, and the protective security will be managed most effectively by the Downtown Merchant Board. That's what it says. So I think it should have been more clear.
And I'd like to, Captain Blanco, you guys spoiled me with all the patrols, so I don't want to see them slow down. It's nice having you guys out there. It really is.
So I'll make a motion that we accept item I with the 29,000 in there, and then I'll leave that up to staff to. You okay with that? To staff to figure out who's going to manage it and how they're going to do
I
it.
think that really needs to be clarified, and also council.
Right. So we're just really approving the 29,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have it.
All right. So
Well, you're ratifying the order and
ratifying the order and then.
And authorizing the grant program.
Okay. So I'll still leave my motion in play then.
I'll second it.
All right. So let's vote. All right, there you go. Thank you very much, and thank you, Robert. So now